So let's get started. Managed backup. How can you package that? So when we talk about managed backup, one thing that we want to make very clear from the beginning, we're not saying become an MSP or a managed service provider, or you have to be a managed service provider in order to offer managed backup. The question is actually more about how can you leverage managing the backups of your customers to increase your revenue and ensure recurring revenue that you can plan better for the future. Because in all reality, you're probably servicing your customers. You might not charge for them. So if you sell them a license for a backup solution, they might ask you questions and you might not charge for them, but you should. And that's what managed backup is all about. It's a means to help you get the revenue you deserve, the revenue that you work for, and to get a recurring means of increasing your revenue. And there are several reasons why this is even relevant, why we're even looking at that. First of all, well, you increase your revenue. As I said, right, you probably service your customers anyway, so you might as well charge them for something that you offer to them, and that on a recurring basis. That makes it easier for you to forecast your revenue for the year, for next year, whatever your financial planning looks like. And it also helps you with improving your margins because you're charging, and that's what we talk about in detail throughout the webinar. You might be charging a flat fee or a certain fee per device, or you not only resell a license, you're adding your services to it. So you're improving your margins with that tremendously. The other benefit of offering managed backup is you're now helping your customers aligning with regulations. You're making sure that if they're losing a file or an entire system, that you are there for them and you can help them recover their data. So with that, you're increasing customer loyalty because they know they can rely on you, but also because you're not just selling them a license and let them walk away, you're offering them an ongoing service. You're increasing the stickiness of your customer. What that means is the customer is more likely to stick around with you versus switching to a different vendor, to a different reseller, because you're taking care of stuff for them. You're not just selling them a license, you're taking care of their everyday needs. And that makes it much harder for them to leave you, AKA they stick around longer. And then at the end of the day, it makes your life easier because now you're not taking care of one-off interactions or of one-off sales. You are taking care of them on a regular basis. And in order to do that, and that's what we're also talking about in a little bit more detail throughout the webinar, you're standardizing what it is that you're doing. So you're maybe monitoring all of your customers. You're setting up the same backup strategy for all of your customers. By offering the same service for all, you're reducing your operational efforts. You're spending less time on troubleshooting. You're making your life easier at the end of the day. So let's see how you can get to these benefits that managed backup offers. So let's talk about some tips for a successful backup as a service offering or for a successful managed backup. Starting with selling your expertise. That is something that we keep saying so often because we see that resellers, IT system integrators, whatever you name yourself, that you undervalue your own expertise. So instead of saying like, yep, I'll tell you how to set up your backup, you just do it for them, right? You don't, we've seen that a lot with partners that they're just giving the license and then say, yeah, I help you with whatever it is you need. You shouldn't do that, right? You should charge for that. You should value your expertise and market that appropriately, because that then also helps you getting away from another issue that we keep hearing is the conversation about one license and the price for one license. You're completely getting away from that. You're getting away from those sales conversations where the customer says like, wow, but that backup license is expensive. Do I even need it? Do I even need a backup at all? You're changing that to, no, I'm offering you a data protection service. I'm making sure that your data is backed up on a regular basis. I'm making sure your backup works. I'm making sure you're aligning with whatever the requirements are for your insurance. I'm making sure you're aligning with whatever HIPAA compliance or whatever data privacy regulations that are out there, depending on who you sell to or who you serve. And secondly, and I talked about that a little bit in the slide before, is standardizing your solutions. So enforcing standard backup policies. That helps you offering the same thing to every customer, which reduces time that you spend with each of your customers. It makes it easier for you to manage everything, to troubleshoot everything. You just know what's going on because you set it up the same way throughout all of your customers. I'm putting the caveat here, unless that's your competitive advantage, right? Unless that is specifically your business model, you should not customize what it is that you're offering to your customers.
And Josephine, I want to add a couple things on this.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I think is overlooked a lot. Some of our best partners out there are, they might not have the exact same customer or anything like that, exact same type of customer, but what they're doing is they're setting up the backup jobs, the backup policies the same way, using the same hardware generally. So it's kind of set up the same way. So you might have, X backups happening, just daily backups, and then maybe a monthly image or something like that, but doing it the same way, so that you have a consistent almost checklist on, hey, here's how this should be set up, here's how it's being done. I know it's going to this NAS, and that type of thing. I know how much space it's going to be taking, and that's really one of the things that really helps when you go into like managing, backups for all these customers. If you do it the same way, it's a lot easier for reporting and daily maintenance of that stuff if it's all the same thing, so you don't have to figure out, okay, how should this guy be working compared to, Acme Corp over there that has a totally different type of setup. If it's the same type of thing, it makes your life a lot easier on how to manage. And also, when it comes to recovery time, if it's set up the same way, you have the same how do you want to say, expectations on how to do that recovery too. So it really helps you on both the monitoring, management, setup, and when it really hits the fan, on that recovery side too.
Yeah, and going even a step further, you just said checklist, which rang a bell in my head, is documentation. So if you think about audits or whatever is needed in the sense of documentation and proving that what you did makes sense and that what you did aligns with whatever compliance or cyber insurance policy, it makes it much easier to provide that documentation then too for each of your customers. All right, and the other thing is the packaging itself. So how do you offer a managed backup service? That is the big focus for us on this webinar. So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but figuring out how you are selling a managed backup service. Do you offer it with or without monitoring? Do you sell it as a usage-based model, or do you have a menu where people can pick from? Is it a service bundle? There's so many options out there, and all have their pros and cons, but at the end of the day, it depends on what your business model is, who your customers are, and what makes sense the most. And then as a last tip, use your vendor support. That's what we are there for, right? So you are an IT expert, but you might not be a backup expert, but that's what we are, using NovaBACKUP as an example. People like Nate or Adam or other people in our support that you've probably talked to in the past, that's their life, right? Backup is their everything. They know the ins and outs. They know what the typical problems are that you might or your customers might run into. They can help you with figuring out the best backup strategy for you and your customers. They're even there to talk with you about packaging if that's what you want to do, and give you some ideas on what you could do specifically for your specific use case. So that's something that we specifically offer all the time and really talk about all the time. Is that's what we're here for. That's what you pay us for at the end of the day, to use, not just to use our software, but to leverage our expertise. And that should not be the case just for your backup solution, but for anything that you do, right? So you don't have to become the expert in this increasingly complicated IT world that is out there, but you can leverage your vendor's knowledge as well and make it your own.
And one
So,
thing I wanted to just add to this is, we're there for you when you have emergencies and that type of thing, but also, if you have questions or just want to go over things, or you have a setup coming up for a new customer that you want to kind of go through, we're there for you for that too. I know a lot of you guys are utilizing the option to schedule set up setup supports and schedule times with us, and that's something that I think it really helps us and you, because then you can expect, when that call is and when to get things ready. I mean, I personally am dealing with a support case with Microsoft for the last 3 months, and I really wish, we wouldn't be playing phone tag and I could just set up a scheduled time. But it's phone tag, and it's a thing that I need to get done, but I can never get a hold of them. So I never, and when they try to call me, it's phone tag back and forth. I really wish I had that option to schedule it with that. It's something that I know a lot of you are using, and I think it helps on both sides.
Yeah. I want to go back to the packaging side of things. We put together a sample calculation, and this is not a fits everyone type of slide. This is more meant to give you some ideas on how you can think about how to price your managed backup service, or generally your services if you want. So this is really just more a talk through on what are the type of things you should include in your calculation and how to think about it. And that will hopefully help you then come up with a price that makes sense for where you're at, what your customers are, because prices, as you are fully aware, probably really depend on, am I in San Francisco, or am I in Des Moines, or am I even not in the US, but in the UK or a different country? Prices really depend on the location, and they depend on who you're servicing. So are your customers mostly home users, or are your customers medical practices, or are they big firms? It all depends. So when you think about putting a price tag onto your managed backup service, first of all, it's interesting to figure out how many customers do you have, right? How many customers do you want to sell this service to? It might be all of your customers. It might just be a subset of your customers. Then the second question is, how much time do you spend with them on average per month? And that might be something that you already know, because if you are someone that today sells ad hoc services, and has a break fix type of service agreement with their customers, where they pay you by the hour that you spend on fixing something, you probably have a pretty good idea on average how much time you spend with your customers. And look at that not on a just per customer basis, but look at that at all the customers that you want to sell that service to, because you will have customers that are very needy and that want to talk to you on a daily basis, and you will have customers that barely talk to you and they're fine, everything is just simply working, right? That's just the nature of things. So look at all the customers that you want to sell that service to. In our funky example, on the right hand side, you see we made up a reseller with 10 customers. They have 10 customers that they want to sell managed backup to. So that's their customer base for that. Then you look at the licenses and devices that you potentially need. Again, that depends on the actual package that you want to sell, but backup software is very likely a part of it. And then some sort of backup storage. There could be other things, well, part of that, of course. But let's say one license per system is at 20 bucks, right? And you have on average one system per customer. Let's keep things simple for now. Then the next step is the services that you want to offer. And that we'll go into that into more detail on the next slide, but that really determines what your price tag is going to be, because it could be as simple as, oh, I'm just monitoring your backups. Or you could add, well, but if I see a mistake, I remote onto your system and fix it. This could include update and patch management. This could include on-site visits. This could include different storage medias if you think on-site versus off-site backup storage. There's so much that you could include. It really depends on how you want to structure your service. And what you do then is you say, okay, my hourly rate is, let's say, 200 bucks. I will spend probably an average 15 minutes a day monitoring all my customers, right? Because you're not just monitoring one customer at a time. You probably have some sort of portal where you can see all of your customers at once and see, okay, this is green, this is green, this is green, this is red. Oh, let me look into this one. And you look at it every day, first thing in the morning, you open this up and look what's the backup status of my customers? Where are my customers at? So that, let's say, takes you 15 minutes a day. And then you spend an average of an hour per month per customer with remote services. That can be fixing stuff, that can be just, getting remote with them to look at something, whatever. So say on average, that is with 10 customers, you're spending 10 hours a month. So if you now calculate that, we did that for you already, quick math. So with 10 hours a month for your remote sessions, 15 minutes a day translates to a lot of hours in the month, but that translates to about $33,500 per month for your services if you have an hourly rate of 200, plus then the 10 licenses that you need for the 10 systems at your customers, that's 200. So you're roughly at 3,700 per month, or if you then calculate it back down to per customer at $370 per month per customer for a basic managed backup service. Again, don't take this number by face value. This is just to give you an idea on how you can approach getting to this price that is then relevant for you. Also keep in mind, you have to take into account things like, do you have a sales commission? If you have a sales team, right, do they get a commission for closing customers? Other fixed costs you might have, like, your rent, your salary, like all those kind of things. So you need to put extra calculation in for your fixed cost, what you think that might be on average. You probably, hopefully, have that number already. And then you can add your margin on top, and that's then what you can sell your service at.
One other thing you want to really think about here is, assume you're not doing any sort of managed backup or any services right now, and you're just doing, normal break fix, like selling new hardware, selling, licenses and that type of thing. These customers are still coming to you for like, hey, XYZ isn't working, that type of thing. And you're obviously charging for this. And well, hopefully you're charging for this when you're fixing things for them and that type of thing. You can kind of gauge, okay, what's that average, that I'm actually making per month from this customer. And this is also a good way to kind of sell this to that customer too. It's like, hey, your average monthly is, last month you spent like, $1,000 with me. This month you spent $150 with me, etc. You can kind of use those numbers and kind of, get a good monthly number for them and say, hey, if we just do this monthly number, I would cover all of that stuff, and you have a set budget for your IT for that customer to you. And I mean, with all the price increases for everything out there, if you can say, hey, this is going to be what, in general, what your IT spend is going to be per month, that could be a big sales point for your customers, to get on board with this if they're not already.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate. And then, as both Nate and I mentioned, like that calculation really depends on what it is at the end of the day that you want to include in your fee. So what is the type of service? What is the package that you want to offer to your customers? And they are different ways. So we collected here a couple of the ones that we see with our partners. So that is not something, we invented here, but we actually heard from our partners that are offering managed backup services. How are they selling this service? And obviously there are a lot of different ways, but those 4 that you see here are the ones that we've heard most often about. So starting with or without monitoring. So I'm offering you a backup solution. You get access to that. We help you set up the backup solution. And then your customer, it's your decision. Do you want to monitor that? Do you want to receive daily emails that tell you backup ran, backup didn't run? Or do you want me to monitor that? And I look at it every morning to make sure, okay, it's green or it's red. And then we figure something out. Kind of a raw or monitor data backup plan. This is actually great, by the way, for reactive customers, so customers who are generally a bit more careful and want to start things slowly. So you can help them start slowly into the managed backup world and into you helping them be more comfortable and you helping them, getting things up and then slowly take over the monitoring. Obviously, if you take over the monitoring, right, that's then your proactive way of helping your customers. That helps with the stickiness, etc. Usage-based, sometimes also called device-based charging. As the name says, you basically charge them based on what they actually use. So that can be per device, PC, server, whatever it is, on a yearly or monthly basis. Usually what we see is that there's a flat fee that is being charged that includes then the service and the backup storage and the backup solution all in one flat fee, with options to have then just a fix per device, but then a flex fee for the gigabyte usage, especially if you do cloud backup storage with your customers, that you have that flexible on the actual cloud storage that they are using. But even here, you can put in a fixed fee where you say, I'm selling you a bucket of cloud. If you're over, then I charge you an overage fee, but your monthly fee includes up to, I don't know, 500 gigabyte of cloud storage with your service, with your device, etc. A great option here as well, especially if you're starting out maybe with this service, or if you know, well, I maybe have not that many customers. So to cover your costs, what you could do here is charge a minimum fee every month that you say, like, dear customer, I know you have 5 servers. I know we will roughly have, I don't know, 2 terabyte of data total then in the cloud. But I also know we will not start with all 5 servers immediately. We will start with 1, and then maybe a month later we add the second, and then we add the third. But since I have fixed costs that I have to take care of, I charge you a minimum of X per month. And then once you are over the minimum, we only charge you for the usage. So that is a very valid option here too. The next 2 items are, so where the first 2 items are more backup specific, managed backup specific, the bottom items could be for your entire service suite. So that doesn't have to be necessarily just backup. That can include other services like antivirus or email encryption and whatnot. So there's an a la carte option. So basically you have like a, like a restaurant menu where you say, I have service 1, service 2, service 3, service 4, and dear customer, you can pick whatever makes sense for you. So the customer can choose what they want. And then there's an all you can eat, a bundle option where you say you pay a fixed fee per month, and that includes all of this. These go actually very well hand in hand. If you say, hey, I have these services as a fixed fee per month, this is my all you can eat bundle. That includes all of these things. But if you need additional items, then we look into the a la carte menu. I'm getting hungry starting to talk about all of this here. But then we are looking into the specific a la carte items, and we can add individual things as needed. As an example, you could say, okay, my bundle includes so many hours of remote service. If my customer goes over, I charge you an a la carte fee for remote services. Or I give you that much cloud storage. If you go over, I charge you a la carte for the cloud storage. To give you actually a really concrete example for that bundle part of things, this is something I took from one of our partners' websites. Nate, I know you are very familiar with these because you're their account manager. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about them and how they structure their service?
Yeah, and this kind of goes a lot, along with that whole bundle thing. So, they're bundling in, an antivirus, firewall, the backup software, mail, everything else, and kind of bundling that all into like a $500 a month per, in this case, dental office package. So that's the base package that they get. So again, this goes back to the standardization. It's standard firewall, standard backup setup. All of the stuff is basically standard for all of it. So they know when they're going to monitor, manage, or go on site or what have you, they know it's going to be there. So they're not guessing or having to deal with different types of things. So this is why they can do it relatively cheap, for a per month thing, because it's all standard. They know how it's going to be set up, and they've built in enough margin on there. So the people that are using more services, they can do that. But on top of this, they do have that, I'll call it that a la carte of, hey, I want to add more cloud storage, add another NAS, add some more hardware or anything like that, or for specific things. But this is their base package, and this is working really well for them. And both on, I talk with the support, their support guys, yeah, at least once a week or so, and just because questions and other things come up, and it's working very well, and streamlined a lot of their um, problem customers, because now they're all in this one package, so they know what to expect when they're dealing with that customer.
Yeah. And I think one interesting aspect, particularly with this customer, is Nate, is that they actually started with an a la carte only
Oh yeah,
model.
yeah.
And they realized it becomes relatively difficult at times to sell something, because then you're starting the conversation with, well, I really don't want to spend that much money, so I don't want this service, even though it's an important service that is part of the whole package. So instead of actually focusing on helping their customer, they had to focus on selling to the customer. So they made that decision to switch to that model, with got a couple of customers angry because they didn't want to pay that fee, that full fee every month. And the interesting part was they are specialized in dental managed support, right? So the customers, they're all dentists. They then went to other resellers, other system integrators, and the majority of them actually came back to this customer because of their expertise. So it goes back to value your expertise, and that's what they did. So they ended up being able to put a package together that they know makes sense for the customer, but that also from a business decision makes sense for them to keep going as a company, right? To pay their bills, etc., to make a revenue. And it ended up being a win-win for the customer, because they get what they need. They feel safe, they feel heard, they feel understood, because it's specifically for dentists. And the company has the right model that makes sense for their business model, for their revenue growth, etc. All right, we talked about a lot of things, and I know sometimes it's difficult because we can only talk into so much detail, because it depends so much on your specific business model that you have or the customer that you're selling to. So I hope that high level overview that we gave you give you some good starting points on getting started with a managed backup service, or looking at your managed backup service if you offer already one, to see, is there maybe something else I can do to increase my revenue? We put together a comprehensive info package where you can go into to find even more information, read a little bit deeper on some of the topics that we covered. I'll send you all the links in the chat just now, but also with the recording email, you'll also get the link again to all of these documents. The links in the email and the ones that I send you go directly to the document. So there's no form that you need to fill out or anything. And of course, other than bombarding you with ebooks and white papers, you can always talk to us, right? Nate already mentioned, like, schedule a call with us if you just want to talk about, hey, this is what I'm thinking. These are the types of customers that I have. Does this make sense, what I'm looking at here? Nate loves to talk about that stuff. It gets him out of his troubleshooting calls every now and then. So it gives him something else to think about. So you do him a favor with that too. But really use this. All of us know the backup world very well. And you can talk not just to Nate, but to really anyone working here, and anyone in support, anyone in accounting, to just brainstorm a little bit. What makes sense for you? Get some ideas. Just chat a little bit. It's great.